be very committed to that they want to have the experience. I think what you realise after a while is that these fears still inhibit people. If you take, like, even my first experiences, I was limited to the room, to my bedroom, for at least the first 6 months of my experiences. And I now think that was to do with an unconscious limitation that I was putting onto myself. And I think that can be the same with people actually trying to have the experience for the first time, that there can be this unconscious block of, you know, letting go, because in a way, actually having an out-of-body experience is force of will or projection, or I think astral projection is almost an unfortunate term because it implies that it's this kind of pushing, sort of, you know, sending something out kind of process. And I think it's actually more of a allowing the process to happen, allowing yourself to relax to a deep enough state, allowing the energy, the kind of wave experience that a lot of people call the vibrational state, allowing that to take place, and then allowing the separation to happen. So it's all a kind of surrendering almost to the experience. But a lot of people hold back from that, or they try too hard almost. So it's an important thing to try and look at what's going on unconsciously with the experience as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the approaches I take.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to know actually when you go out. From books, it seems to suggest that reality almost seems slightly different to how we would view it. It's almost like it's a little bit, I don't know, like shadowy almost. Is that true?
Well, I think experiences are different for different people. I mean, in my own experience, there's definitely different types of, different ways that we experience reality around us. For example, I sometimes see physical buildings in this reality almost as energy. They seem to radiate energy, and I think this is because they've almost accumulated energy in it as a kind of battery. They built up energy over time, and now they seem to vibrate or seem to have a particular signature, energy signature about them. Whereas in another experience, human beings will seem far more energized, and physical objects will seem almost invisible. So I think it's very much, again, to do with the particular level or the particular filter that you're using and how you're operating in your experience. So if you think about it in terms of raising consciousness, I think it's to do with the way that your consciousness is attuned, because I think all of this stuff is to do with that our consciousness is essentially interconnected with everything around us, and sometimes that connection is stronger because we've managed to get deep enough to make that connection, and other times it's less so. So I think it's to do with that, how things appear. So sometimes they can appear more real, and sometimes they can appear more fluid, and the classic experiences where things seem blended between objective and subjective reality can take place.
Just wondering if there's different levels when you can actually, is it astral projection? That's right, isn't it? So you can move your consciousness into the kind of physical reality. So your consciousness is viewing what the physical looks like outside the body, but there's also kind of like other layers, almost like the astral as well, where you might have a complete mirror image of the physical, but there might not be any beings walking around, like a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Have you seen that kind of thing going on?
I mean, with the whole astral thing, I tend to avoid that term because it has a connection to theosophy and different belief systems. And I tried to, in my approach, I tried to strip everything down and just say what is the essence of the experience. So with other levels, yeah, I mean, there are levels that seem to be almost, like carbon copies of this reality, and there doesn't seem to be many people. And then other experiences where the classic, almost Summerland kind of concepts that people describe, where things seem like almost a heaven-like environment, where there seems to be communities of people who are operating on that level. But of course, those kinds of experiences are very hard to evaluate objectively, because we don't really know what we're experiencing and how real it is.
So if you've experienced anything where you've been able to go somewhere out of the body and then afterwards confirm what's there?
Yeah, I've had several experiences like that. The first one was in central London. I laid down to go to sleep, and then I just found myself out of my body, turning the corner near Marble Arch and Bayswater Road in central London. I went straight down Bayswater Road and then off towards Portobello Road, that kind of area. And there was a house, and I went straight through the window of the house, and the room was laid out like an office. And in this particular experience, my vision and everything was really, really heightened. And I was able to perceive the name of the guy who lived there, and memorize the location of the house. And then afterwards, I was able to verify the details of that particular person and his house. And then I've also had very powerful precognitive experiences. One of the Soho bombing in '99, where four or 5 days before the bombing took place, I had an OBE, out-of-body experience, where I found myself standing on the street in Old Compton Street, looking down the street, and I saw an explosion and a guy running towards the explosion, and just general chaos and emotional turmoil. That's what I experienced on the street. And then, 5 days later, a bombing took place there. And then I had another experience like that of the London bombing as well, the Aldgate East bombing. I experienced being in the tunnel, in an out-of-body experience as well. So
that's just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, that just, in a way, it confirms that time isn't, it's not fixed in a sense, and that in some ways there's a part of the future that already exists. And it makes you wonder, is the future fixed, or is there many permutations of the future that you can travel to, and it's already there? It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with those experiences a lot, trying to look at them rationally and trying to work out what was going on. In writing my book, that's going to be published shortly, I didn't know whether to include them. I was like, if I put these experiences in, it's like they're really out there and really difficult to get your head around. But then I thought, for the integrity of the book, they have to be in there. So then I decided to look into the science and see if there was any way that these could be looked at in a scientific sense. So I contacted Dean Radin, who's a researcher into psychic phenomena in different areas.
Okay.
And Dean Radin basically said to me that you can look at it like they're potentialities. So you don't have to necessarily think that everything's set, but you can take the perspective that what you've perceived is a potential reality or a potential future, and it's reached such a momentum in a way that the likelihood of that event taking place is so strong that essentially that's what happens. So he that's kind of how he sees it.
Yeah.
And he also explained that in a quantum sense, there is no, past and future. It's, time is very, malleable.